Our first speaker tonight is impacting hundreds of millions of students across India. He is a board member of I. Einstein Organization, a project whose mission is to stimulate a transformational, nationwide education movement here in India. Working with NGOs, governmental agencies, as well as corporate clients, they make available these ecosystems to those hundreds of millions of students across all socio and economic boundaries in India. Just for the sake of clarification, ecosystems in this context refer to the interdependency of commercial entities. For example, suppose you order a pizza. The pepperoni was produced in Milan, the flour comes from Kansas, the salt from India, and the brand Domino's, well, we have no idea where that comes from. That is an ecosystem, a culinary ecosystem. Mr. Agarwal has had over 30 years of engineering, marketing, as well as managerial experience in the vast fields of technological systems and apparatus, ranging from mobile computing to wireless communications to even consumer electronics. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to welcome to you Mr. Prakash Agarwal.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Prakash Agarwal. I was born and raised in India. Grew up in Allahabad, Uttar Pradesh. In 1972, I migrated to USA. Currently now I live in San Francisco Bay Area. The very reason I'm back here in India and working on this educational project was the reason that I left India. And if you look at, by Indian standards, I have no talent and I'm a failure. And the reason I say that, back in 1972, during my second year of college, in the middle of exams, I was so frustrated with the system here, I dropped out. I did not complete, and I was fortunate enough to leave and went to US. And point here is, it applies to a lot of us. Those who even did complete the schools and they went overseas, they did quite well. And it really had to do what was the system they were operating in, what was the ecosystem around them. And with that, I would share in the next 15 minutes or so a little bit more about my own background and also this ecosystem which we have developed for e-learning program and how it could relate to any other problems. So going back to, again, education in India, with the 1.2 billion population, we have about 400 million students here in India. And by any means, about only 50 million students actually pass high school, which you could say about 15–16% are educated. And if you look at by international standards, even that would not even qualify to be very educated. So that's leaving about 350+ million students with no education or substandard education. And when I look at that problem, I say, wow, this is a time bomb. When these students grow up, what will they do? Is there a solution? Yes, there is a solution, but it's a massive problem and it cannot be underestimated. It cannot be solved by the conventional means the way we have been on it. The teacher shortage we have, okay, there cannot be any more teachers and trained fast enough to really solve the teacher shortage problem. When I was going college, there was only emphasis on teachers come to the classrooms, they teach, they go home, I go home. How much did I really learn? There was no emphasis on learning, it was teaching. All it was dependent on how much I could memorize at the end of 2 years when I go to take exams, all right, based on that memory, either I'm I do okay or I don't do that okay. So in order to solve this problem, this teaching needs to move from teaching to learning. And it needs to be comparable to the international standards, because as the economy becoming more and more global, jobs will be more and more global. And there's no way that Indian domestic market can consume all these 350 plus million students to give domestic jobs. In order for them to get jobs, they need to play at the global level. And for them to play at the global level, they need to have global level education. So coming from Silicon Valley, having technology background, we feel, and also just looking at the human civilization, that technology is the only way to solve massive problems. Whether it was a food shortage in India, there was a Green Revolution, or the polio vaccine, or whatnot, every time we had the massive problem which needed a great solution, it was a technology innovation. So the e-learning, we feel, is very important to solving this educational challenge we have. Now, there are lots of organizations who are very active in this e-learning space, but as our experience has been, looking at the challenges, okay, if you're talking about e-learning, first you need a device, a computer, which allows you to learn from those contents. You need connectivity so that you can go on to websites which are providing contents, whether it's a Khan Academy or a bunch of other people. Also, in many, many places where there's no electricity, charging these computers and servers, that's a big issue. And more importantly also, again, I'm talking about these schools which are trying to serve 350 million students. ASB is an exception here. You would have none of these problems here. So then you also need the teachers who are web savvy, that they know how to navigate around web. Contents and software software platform, which allow you to access these contents in the Indian context. So while there is a significant progress, however, we feel that there is an ecosystem missing. And not only just a ecosystem, it really needs a talented ecosystem. Now, I started getting involved with this project early last year. My first company, which I had founded in 1993 in Bay Area, did quite well, actually. Its name was NeoMagic. If you had owned a laptop between 95 and year 2000, most likely you had our chip in it. Then I left that company in 2005. I started another one in 2006. That did not do so well. And early last year, I shut that down. So one of my partner in this crime is a fellow named Kamran Elayan, who is originally from Iran, great human being, and he has been doing some of these projects all over the world, first with the schools online in mid-90s, and then similar program to this Einstein, which we're implementing in India. He has it going on in Palestine. So he approached to me early last year. He says, Prakash, now since you are done with your corporate life, you must have time. Let's go and implement this e-learning program in India. I said, Cameron, the last time I had anything to do with the education, that was 1972, and I still have nightmares about it. But since it's an important thing, let's first just go and understand what it is. So he and I and a few other people, and we're working very closely with the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. That's a funding branch of US government. 6 of us came to India. We talked to many companies, nonprofit, for-profit, government agencies. We spent about 10 days and all of that. We learned a lot. And this is where I was pleasantly surprised that how many companies were active in this e-learning domain. I was equally disappointed that it was more exploitation than really trying to figure out how to help the student. And with that, I started looking at how can I have no educational background. I don't educate people. I have been executive in technology industry. I said, how can we apply some of the best business practices we do in organizations to find a solution for this problem? okay? And this is where looking for the talent system and all of that. And some of I have jotted down here. First, you got to define your sandbox. Where are you going to play? And understanding the current ecosystems, who are the other players, who are your competitors, who are, okay, you can collaborate with, and with that, you basically because what's important here is that when there are massive problems, no single entity can solve all the problems. And those who try to do it, they fail. Their intentions are good, they put a lot of money and time into it, yet they fail. And the reason is they just fail to understand all the entities around them and interdependency they have. So you got to figure out, who are all the players in it. Define your own value proposition, okay? And with that, redefine the ecosystem. Sometimes you got to change the game as you're defining the ecosystem. And then you go and forge the important partnerships with the ecosystem. So with all that in the background and working in the industry for so many years, I started looking at this educational problem in India. And this is what I defined as the current e-learning scenario in India. You have schools and you students. There are a lot of students who even don't go to schools. That's why I have kind of separated them out. And if you start looking at, from e-learning perspective, who are the players, you have device providers, whether it's HCL, Micromax, or Sony, or Samsung, who not. They all see this market opportunity as a big market opportunity when it comes to e-learning. And they even have started offering the contents on their device. The problem they have no distribution channels going to these schools and students. All they can do, pull them. And how they pull? They put ads in the newspapers and ads and in the TV and magazines and say, this is what we are offering. So, which is good, but what happens, they're only able to pull the rich students and rich schools. Because poor student really doesn't know how to go to, where to go, and even doesn't have money to buy any of that. So all they have is pull strategy, nothing, no distribution channels going to these schools and students. Take another player in this ecosystem is broadband operators, where you have Reliance, Vodafone, Airtel, and they know that e-learning requires a lot of connectivity, so there is this important element. They themselves have also started offering contents, but again, they don't have distribution channels. So their solution is not reaching to the masses, because all they can do is sell in their showrooms. Then there are web content providers. They have done a really, really good job of creating the contents online, whether it's the Khan Academy, CK12, National Geography has put all of their contents, Smithsonian has put a lot of contents. Yet, all right, unless you know about them, they have no way of reaching to you. So through viral programs or whatnot, those who have access to computer and connectivity, sometimes they get to it, sometimes they're just there, and nobody knows how to access them. There are two entities in this ecosystem who have put efforts into establishing the distribution channels. One are the publishers, or more like electronic publishers, which I define them as educational service providers, ESPs. And these are the companies, EduComms, EduRite, Everon, Pearson, they have gone into a lot of efforts and put into it, getting to schools. There's another one, there's just beginning to, these are the non-banking financial corporations, entities like ISFC in Hyderabad, and one is just starting in Bangalore, Varthana, who provide the loans to some of these schools to expand their operations. So they go to these schools and say, all right, you need to add another building, you need to add more computers, you need to add bathrooms for ladies, all of that. Here it's check for 50,000 rupees or 2 lakhs or 5 lakhs, go and you pay it back. So they are able to establish the channels. Now, as I mentioned, that there are issues with each of them, which needs to be overcome. So when I started looking at this problem, who do we work with? Can we just work with a single entity here? Can I work with the ESPs and say, you have relationship with the schools, you don't have access to the computers or operators and all, we'll provide that to you. because we have great relationships. We have about 7 board members at this time, and one of our board member is ex-retired Stanford professor, Professor Paul Raj Arogyaswamy. He's a Padma Bhushan, quite accomplished fellow. If there was a Nobel Prize for wireless communication, he probably would have gotten one. And he has a relationship with all the broadband suppliers, operators. So with our connections, we can all put all that together. But then ESPs see us, oh, you're going to provide free contents, that's going to kill our business, so why should we work with you? So you start seeing all of these things, Then you go and work with, HCL and say, oh, we're already providing notebooks and netbooks, what is it, you can do for us, okay? All right. So we started wondering, is there a role for nonprofit? We are nonprofit to compete against people who are for profit. And I find that very difficult that any nonprofit organization can compete against for profit. So nonprofit or government agencies have a role where it's the role where no company, no entity is addressing it. Because if that's being addressed by for profit, stay away from it, because they will make it work somehow. So this is where we started looking at it. What is it missing here? And we felt, okay, what's missing here is a complete ecosystem, a complete solution, because none of these guys can do the job of providing the whole solution, which is needed. So therefore, we can work with experts in each of their domain, bring them under umbrella, okay, and offer that as a complete solution. And that's what became our Einstein ecosystem. What we have introduced is through our own networking is 3 other elements. One is a software platform called Guru. Guru is a search engine only for educational contents. So let's say as a user or as a teacher or student, if I'm trying to access some contents online, Guru will help me to only search those contents which are relevant to the search I have. Actually, it was being developed by Google India, and Google did not want to take it to market, so the person who was in charge of this project left Google and turned this into a nonprofit. And it also allows me to curate, so I can have a video from here, a video from there, a PDF file from there, and by virtue of basically selecting and dragging it and bringing it, it comes into my lesson plan. So it makes the whole search for contents very easy, and also it makes it very easy to curate a lesson plan. So having that sitting in between teachers, students, and the web contents make the whole job really, really easy. Similarly, working with other NGOs, very active in educational area, it allows us to get to the schools who have the relationship with the schools. And one of the most important partnership in this domain is, like I mentioned earlier, we're working with OPIC, who provides low-cost financing to make it enabled. We ourselves have set a goal that we will do 1.3 million devices in India. However, this ecosystem is flexible enough that anybody can take advantage of it, mix and match with their own offering. And my hope is, with that, actually it's going to address the needs of over 100 million students, some over time. And after understanding this whole ecosystem, I believe there are a lot of opportunities within this sector, plenty of opportunities for all profit, non-profit, urban, rural entities. Those who have relationship with the schools, okay, especially K-12, we like to hear from them. Distribution and collection, there's a lot of opportunities in that area. Contents creation and curation, curriculum mapping, there are a lot of lesson plans done in the websites by those contents providers, and yet they need to be mapped into Indian curriculum, Indian syllabus, as well as translated to Indian regional languages. Teachers training is one big issue, so how we can use online and train these teachers. Vocational training is one thing. And with that, I'll give you one anecdote here, which I told some of these people earlier today. Last year, I came out here, India, I had this one big leather bag, and by the time I got back, US, it had one big cut. And I took back to the store, and they said, well, it's beyond warranty, we cannot take it back. And I really liked that bag. I said, what can I do? Okay. So I went online. I searched for how to stitch a bag together or how to stitch the leather. I found nice YouTube videos where it taught me how to do mochi wala job. And great, I learned how to stitch the leather. I went to Amazon.com. I ordered this leather stitching kit. And within a day, it came. And here I stitched the bag. I brought it with me this time to India, just working fine. Nobody even can tell that, there was something being done to it. Now, the amount of money I spent buying the kit and all of that, I probably would have bought a new bag with that money, okay? The point here is that, there's so much out there, okay? Any of us can learn so much provided there's a tool, provided there is an ecosystem around it, so that my hope is that next Einstein comes from India, okay, because they will have access to all of these great tools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal.